Today's topic is bye-bye local admins, a particularly vexing problem that we've all had for years and years, causes lots of problems in our environment, and so it's been an interesting subject, right? Can we do away with it? Can we do away with the problems that it causes having our users be local admins on their computers without suffering from the consequences of taking them away? Right? There are certainly things that they need that level of permissions to do, and when we take it away, they can't do those things. And does that end up causing more problems than it's worth? And that's probably, that thought is probably what's kept many of us from even attempting it. So the question today is, can it really be done, practically speaking? Let's find out. Before we get in to the meat of our topic today, we've got just a few preliminary slides. I want to make sure everybody's aware of all the resources that we have for you in addition to, of course, the KKE program. And the first one up is Backyard Boot Camp. This is a project that Andrew and I have taken on the last couple of years that we're really, really excited about. We travel around different places, as you can see, different cities in the country here, and we hold classroom-based training. And this year is going to be even bigger and better than we have in previous years. We're still sorting out the final details on the curriculum and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really cool. You get lots of one-on-one time, lots of time with both your trainers and your fellow attendees to really hash out all the issues that you might have in your environment and figure out what the solutions are within the case appliances, and you get hands-on time, right, with the K2, with the K1 in a nice safe lab environment that we prepare for you. So you get to not only learn how to do everything, you get to try it out yourself, right? And then take it back home and improve your environment when you get there. You can find all the details. You can see the cities and dates there, but you can find all the details and register for any class you might be interested in at casebootcamp.com. Our upcoming topics, of course, today, bye-bye local admins, an open forum on Thursday, as we typically do, and as you can see going into the future. And then for the rest of January, we got Case and Windows 10. There's been recent updates, as we'll point out in just a moment, on both the K1 and the K2 to support both Windows 10 and the new Mac version, who's LCABI 10. And so we're going to cover everything you need to know about Case and Windows 10, K1 and K2, working with Windows 10 there. The 26th, we got patching troubleshooting. We've covered patching a lot in KKE, and we'll do it again in the future. But we wanted to focus specifically on, now that you've got it set up and working in the best practice way that we've taught you in the past, what happens when patches don't get successfully applied? What do I do? How do I figure out what went wrong, and how do I solve it? And that's what we're going to cover in that session. And then understanding imaging. We've done this series late last year in KKE, the Understanding Imaging series, and the Mac one we've had some updates to, and so we wanted to redo that one and give you a new version of that one with the new features that we've included recently. Lots and lots of self-help resources for y'all. Software.dell.com/case training is the homepage for all things related to case training. You can find Jumpstart, which you can purchase hours of there, Backyard Boot Camp, KKE, InkPad, everything can be found in that one location. itninja.com. Of course, anything and everything you can discuss and find us collaborative solutions for out at itninja.com. Support.software.dell.com is the home page for Case. Right? Anytime you need help from our support team, you can create tickets there, update your tickets with new information. You can search all of our knowledge base articles, and they are legion. We have tons of them, folks. Chances are, if you have an issue, it's not the first time that issue has come up. It's probably happened before, which means we probably already have the solution detailed in a knowledge base article. You can go check that out. You can download all the resources, all the new versions that we'll talk about in just a second for each of the appliances. You can download there and apply them to your case appliances. You can, of course, find the additional Jumpstart training, et cetera, that you find on the first link, and all of our documentation, the release notes, and so forth for all of our products there. Case.uservoice.com is where you can submit feature requests, right, for all of our products. Anything new you'd like to see in our products, you can submit there, vote on those that are submitted by others. You can also get feedback direct from our engineers on the progress of each of these feature requests right on that page. And then connect.case.com, you can see a special link for the KKEers to join that program. Definitely recommend this, folks. Not only can you answer questions and interact with others in the answering of those questions and earn points for that, and then get free stuff for your points, but most importantly for those of you who are attending today, that's where you're going to get sneak previews of our new versions before anybody else. Right? That's the invite-only sneak previews of the new stuff that's coming out on Case Appliances. The invites go to those that are members at the connect.case.com, so definitely recommend that you sign up there. Now, the latest, most current, generally available versions of our appliances, you can see the numbers on the screen. And Andrew, if you wouldn't mind dropping the links into chat for me. We've recently come out with hot fixes and or service packs for the K1 and K2 to affect the Windows 10 and the El Capitan support. So you definitely want to make sure you're upgraded to the latest version for that, for those support levels. And you can see the K1000 Go mobile app version there also. And that has gotten a recent update as well to coincide with the 6.4 version of the K1000. Lots of cool features in that mobile app. If you haven't used it, I definitely recommend checking that out, folks. And here we go. Now on to the actual topic for today. Why by local admins can it be done? And the way I've broken this down is, first of all, we really need to understand what local admin rights are, why they exist in the first place, and what might be some of the benefits, right? So what are the costs of having local admin rights, and then what are the benefits of taking it away? And we got to make sure that we balance those things out. Right? As I said in the very open, we got to make sure that taking away the local admin rights, which does significantly positively impact our IT department, doesn't cause more problems than it solves and end up having a significant negative impact, right, on our IT department. And then once we've made the decision, that's something we want to go for, we have to know how to get it approved, because it's a big, big, scary thing. You think it's scary for you with technical knowledge, right? Think how scary it is for your management who doesn't have your level of technical expertise. Right? All they see is users can't do this and can't do that and can't do this, and they're going to get phone calls. Right? We've got to be able to put it in terms that they understand. So we're going to talk about management buy-in. All right, so we've decided we wanted to do it. We've gotten the program sold. It's approved. We're ready to actually do it. Oh, oh no. Now we got to actually plan this and implement it in a successful way, and it's a major undertaking. It's one of the most major projects you could ever undertake in IT. So we really need to understand that, and how do we do it? So that's what I've broken down today's topic, and of course we're going to have time for Q&A at the end. Now, why do we care? So what are admin rights on the local computer? It's local admin or administrator rights in Windows, and it's called root in the non-Windows OSs. And while we're going to focus pretty much exclusively on Windows today, a lot of what we're talking about today can be adapted and applied to the non-Windows operating systems, and Mac and Linux and so on. So first of all, applications, and this is probably the big one. At least when you balance what we've traditionally allowed users to do on their computers, and what they need to be able to do for the typical day-to-day grind that they go through, and what we're okay with and comfortable with them doing is the application side, not so much the green box, which we'll talk about in a second, but really the blue box here. Right? Installing applications, pretty much any application you're going to install, really requires you to be at the very least a power user in Windows, if not a full-on administrator in Windows, right? Updating them likewise. In some cases, configuring them, you can, once they're installed, you could be just a regular user, not a local admin, and everything's okay, but in some cases, changing some of the settings within the app, right, or settings related to the application, some of that configuration can require being a local admin, or at least having some sort of elevated privileges, right? And in some cases, even running the stinking app can require local admin rights. Right? There may be applications where it's just not possible. And so traditionally, instead of trying to figure out an alternate solution, it's been quicker and simpler, at least on the front end, at least up front, to just grant them the local admin rights and deal with the problems that come from people being local admins on their computers. Right? We're going to talk about both the upfront and the long-term costs, because we really need to make more intelligent decisions than that. Operating system. A lot of OS functions that you might do outside of just running your applications do require local admin rights. Now, this is stuff that we really don't want users doing on their own anyway, right? But they're local admins, and if they figure out how to do it, or they Google, some sort of solution to a problem they're having, instead of contacting us and having us fix it for them, then they might be able to do it if they've got local admin rights. And in some cases, especially when we have a small IT staff, right, we're really worried about, well, if we take away local admin rights, there are these things that, yeah, we wish they wouldn't do, that they'd come to us, but do we have the manpower to be able to do these things when they come up, as they come up in the normal course of work? Right? Installing applications, configuring things in the operating system, it's easier just to send a link to a user and have them do it themselves. Right? But again, we have to balance all this stuff with the downside. They can do anything to the computer, which means they will eventually do any crazy thing to the computer. And then hardware, right? The ability to plug in a USB device, whether it be, a thumb drive they need to make a sort of an unofficial backup of a file, right? Or to transfer files for use at home, something along those lines, which I know our larger IT departments who have a real focus on security are mortified at the very thought of that, right? But especially small and mid-sized, we don't have the resources and therefore the inclination to get that involved in security, and it's very convenient for users to be able to take the work back and forth. But just leaving that aside, we don't even want to do that. Just the ability to plug in some speakers, or a USB headset for doing soft phone stuff, or whatever it might be, some sort of peripheral, plug in their iPod so it charges, or, whatever the case might be, being able to quickly and easily plug these things in and install the drivers necessary to run them in some cases requires local admin rights. We take that away, and now we got a headache to deal with, right? And then probably most everybody falls into the yellow box, right? Because that's the way we've always done it. I got here, that's the way it was, right? I tried to talk them into it, but I didn't really have the ammunition necessary to convince them. And, the internal inertia, the momentum is in that direction, and it was hard to overcome, right? Well, that's what we're here today to learn, right? Are these insurmountable? Can we overcome these without causing more problems than we solve, right? Can I take away local admin rights, and users can no longer do any of these three things, and now every time they need them done, we have to go do them? That puts more work on the IT department. Sure, we cut out all the problems that causes having local admin rights that we haven't talked about yet, right? But does it create more work for us because we have to go do these things every time a user needs it because they can't do it themselves anymore, Well, let's balance what are the benefits of taking it away, right? I've seen the downside. They can't do any of these three things anymore, most likely. What are some of the benefits? Well, if we start by standardizing our environment, right? Because we no longer have the the user's ability to just download any kind of crazy application and install in their box and use that application instead of our officially company approved applications, right? We get to standardize our environment. Users can't just install any version of a reader that they want, Flash player that they want, Java plugin that they want, right? We get to control that now. So we can have a more predictable environment, right? A more consistent experience because all the computers are very, very similar because users can't make them different anymore, right? So we can have fewer images. When we're setting up our imaging environment, right, we can have fewer of them as we continue to streamline our environment and have control over that environment, right? We have the same apps and the same versions of apps everywhere, which means we can simplify our license management, right? Instead of having 8 different versions of that application that have been deployed over the years, right? We've got everybody on the same 1 or 2 versions, which also, as we go to the right, which makes things easier for our techs because they don't have to remember the bugs in 8,000 different versions of applications. Right? They're going to have the same consistent issues come in and fewer of them. And we're going to have less malware, which is probably the one we ought to put in bold. Right? That's the biggie. That's the big benefit of taking away local admin rights. If users can't install any random thing, it means they can't install any random thing anymore. Right? So they get less of the bad stuff, which often comes bundled with the good stuff. Okay? And then for our users, that means we've got more consistent environment. We don't have to train them on as many things. Every time they upgrade to the latest version of something when we weren't ready for them to, and now we've got users with 18 different versions, and we've got to have training available for them to understand the differences between those 2 different versions. Oh, you've upgraded to the new one before we were ready. Well, now you've got to know how to use it, where everybody else needs to know the old version, and so on and so forth. We less training because it's a more consistent environment. And because we have fewer things installed on the machines, because we installed it, and as they need new things, we install it with a clean, prepared version we know about. There's less installed on the boxes. There's less random stuff installed, which means there's less that can go wrong on these machines. As we get a more consistent, predictable environment, we're going to have fewer and fewer and fewer problems, those that are caused by users and those that are caused by users just having different stuff. Okay? And we can simplify computer sharing as well. I don't have to worry so much about, Bob sharing Sally's computer as opposed to sharing Stu's computer because they've all got the same stuff on them. Anybody can walk up to any machine and use the same apps because they are the same apps and the same versions of the same apps. Right? So any particular computer, yours breaks and Sally's out today, well, you can just hop over to her desk and use hers because it's going to have the same stuff. Right? It gives us more leeway time for fixing your machine or providing a loaner temporarily, something along those lines. Okay? And for our technicians, less training. They don't have to know how to troubleshoot 18 different versions of an app. Right? We run, either you have Office 2013 Standard or you have Office 2013 Pro Plus. Right? Everybody has Reader XI. Everybody has the right Flash Player version and the right Java version and the right Internet Explorer version and the right browser versions and browsers and so on and so forth. Everybody's got a consistent environment with the same versions of apps, and we don't have to have as much training for our technicians. Right? And of course, I know you're all laughing, ha-ha, like they ever send us to training. I know, but y'all have to learn on your own, right? You have to learn, well, it's IE11. Okay, well, we always get these problems with IE11 and those problems with IE8 and so on and so forth, right? You've got to stay on top of more apps. Well, if we don't have all those apps, you only got to stay on top of the few that we have, right? And know those and how to troubleshoot them and where to click and so on. And if there's less that can go wrong, there's less that will go wrong, because if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, right? And all this leads to tickets, right? It all comes back to tickets, as we'll talk about. There's fewer tickets, and those tickets are more predictable. We don't have random things coming in because John upgraded his Flash player and it broke things, right? Or upgraded his Internet Explorer and it broke things. Okay? And all this leads to simplified troubleshooting. There's less to troubleshoot, and it's simplified because we're going to have the same issues on all machines, right? Because they're all very similar machines, same apps, same versions of apps. Because we don't have users just downloading and installing random things and updating and upgrading before we're ready for them to, and so forth. Okay, so we're talking about major benefits. We're talking about a huge impact, number of tickets. Okay, now there's pain that comes with this, as we've already talked about. If we take away their local admin rights, there are things they can't do anymore. That means we have to do it for them, right? Every time they need an application installed, we have to do it. Every time they need an application updated, we have to do it, and et cetera, right? Wrong. We don't have to. You already have case appliances. The solution to taking away local admin rights, you already own. Okay? If users need software installed or updated, we got managed installations, we got scripts, we got patching that can solve those problems automatically. I'm not talking about you still have to go and you click one button, right, to send this managed install to that machine, as opposed to the old-fashioned way you'd have to remote into the machine and manually install it yourself. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about setting up the K1 to automatically detect which machines need which applications and put it on there automatically. Right? So the problem is not a problem because there's a solution, and it's an automated solution. It's not any more work on you at all. Users need patches, and so we let them have admin rights so they can do Windows patches, right? Windows Update baked into Windows. Well, first of all, that's not patching. That's partial patching, because there's lots of patches that are needed by machines that aren't Windows patches, right? That aren't operating system patches or even Microsoft application patches. So they're not getting all their patching done anyway. Right? And B, they're doing it willy-nilly. Some machines never click that little pop-up that comes up in the bottom right-hand corner that says, hey, there are patches that need to be applied. And if they do, they might do it before we're ready for them to get those particular patches. Right? It's up to Microsoft. Well, we want to essentially control that. And with the K1000 patching module, we can do that in a completely automated fashion. Right? We can set up the K1 to automatically test patches on our test machines, and once we're happy with them, automatically deploy them out to our production environment. And that can be set up, and it happens. Nobody needs local admin rights for patching's sake. Okay? Configuration changes. It's not an application. It's not patching. I need you to change a setting, maybe in the registry or environment variables, or you change some application setting, or whatever it might be. Well, that can certainly be done with the K1000, right? With the scripting module. There's some command we need to run, a registry setting we need to change, or whatever it might be we can do with scripting. And of course there's tons, literally thousands of settings we can change using our group policy in our domain, right? Which we should be using, folder redirection and other kinds of stuff. And I mean, even do a case that we could definitely be doing with group policy that eliminates a lot of the need for a user to be a local admin. And again, in a completely automated way. Okay? Not like you have to go put this script to that machine. This can all be automated. Here are the machines that need this particular setting. They get it automatically. Okay? You need your OS reloaded. Maybe the machine somehow has gotten infected with viruses or gotten some sort of corruption in the operating system. Well, that's what the K2 does. It's a re-imaging box. Right? And that, again, can be at least mostly automated. A couple of clicks, and the next time the machine reboots, it gets re-imaged. Right? And we can combine the K1 and K2 to do this process as well. right? Use both the solutions together to affect that automated re-imaging process whenever it's needed, no matter how much distance is between us and that particular device. Need new drivers or new BIOS? Maybe we need Wake on LAN on that machine, or we need the ability to boot to a USB drive or something like that, right? And their BIOS doesn't support it. Maybe if we flashed it to a newer version of the BIOS, it would have that that support that we need, right? Well, as long as we're talking about Dell devices, we can do that with the K1 also. Right? We can push out new versions of video drivers and new BIOSes and all that kind of stuff right from the K1, and that can be set up automatically just like the patching can. It works exactly the same way. Okay? But maybe you're saying, but yeah, Ron, but then what about those things we can't predict? User just happens to randomly need, they've got to go to start tax purposes, they got to log in to this particular website that the government runs, and it requires this crazy plug-in they don't need for anything else, and they never needed it before, and now they need it. It means I got to go do it, right? And this stuff comes up periodically, and a technician has to go do it because the user doesn't have local admin rights and can't install it themselves. Nope. We can make things available on demand, right? Just as we can build a managed installation that automatically gets pushed to machines, we can make an installation or a configuration change or whatever, any managed install or script or file download, a synchronization, we can put on the user console in the user download section, and the users can come get it on demand. They click a button, and it just happens when they're ready for it, when they're available for it, right? We prepare it so it's silent, it doesn't have any pop-ups, it has the right license code, right configuration, whatever it is, just like a managed install, just like a script. We pre-configure it, and they click one button, and they've got it, and they don't have to be local admins when they click that button. Even though it's on demand, they still don't have to be local admins. So you can see that the problems that we create by taking away local admin rights, we already have the solution for. Right? So now we can have all the benefits of taking away local admin rights, and we can mitigate the problems that come with taking away local admin rights. All the positives and none of the negatives. Right? Well, maybe. What about exceptions? What if there are some where just running that app, never mind installing it, and you say, okay, well, running the app doesn't take local admin rights, just installing it, so we take care of the installation, and now the user doesn't need to be a local admin to run that app, right? So we can survive that. Well, what if there are literally some apps that just to run the app every day that they need to run it requires local admin rights? There are some apps like that. Right? Are there going to be some exceptions? Can we literally take local admin away from everybody? And that's just the technical hurdles, which we're going to talk more about. Just the technical hurdles. What about political or personal hurdles? What if you go talk to the CEO about taking away his local admin rights? Right? Or the superintendent, or whatever your big boss man is. Right? He starts to get a little antsy. He doesn't really need them per se. Nobody needs them. That's what we're talking about. But he still doesn't really want you to take them away. So we got some hurdles to overcome. There are going to be some exceptions. Who are these exceptions? For technical reasons, I've got some listed there. But as I mentioned, there may be some non-technical hurdles that we've got to overcome. Let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, I'm going to concentrate mostly on the technical, but certainly some of the stuff that I say can be adapted and applied to the non-technical exceptions as well. And of course, we got Q&A if you want to talk about, how to go about broaching those subjects. So when it comes to our technical exceptions, you say, okay, we've identified these people, whether it be applications they need to run that just require local admin rights to work, or whether it be configuration changes they need to make. Quite often, and we run into this here at Dell, quite often our engineers right? Our programmers, our developers, in order to be able to test some feature of what they're writing, they need to be able to configure their computer in a certain way, test the thing, and get a result, and reconfigure their operating system or applications or whatever in a certain way, and then test the result that way, and so on. They need local admin rights just as a fact of their day-to-day job, right? How do we get around that? It's not like they need applications installed. Okay, we can do that. Or they need configuration changes in a certain way all the time. We can do that. They're going to randomly change things on their machines. That's their actual job from time to time in random times and random ways. Right? It's not really practical, again, for us to have to go and do this for them 3 times a day, every day. It's much better for us to just let them be local admins and suffer the problems. We don't get any of the benefits. We don't have any of the problems of taking them away. Okay? Maybe there's still a solution. First of all, if we start from left to right here, and this is just but one, this is just some ideas. You may come up with your own solutions, okay? It's just some ideas to get the juices sort of flowing in, to get you thinking. So first of all, everybody gets a standard computer. It doesn't matter what's physical or virtual. Everybody gets a standard computer. And on it comes all of our normal stuff that everybody has, all of our Office basic business apps and browsers and all that kind of stuff. And it's locked down, no local admin rights. And it works for everybody. This is all the stuff we've tested. It's done. Solved. No problem. Okay? All of our apps work with no local admin rights. Everybody can log in and do what they need to do. For a lot of our employees, this is all they have, is the standard computer, because that's all they need is the line of business applications, Office docs, email, browsing, that sort of thing. That's all they need. If they need plugins for this or that website, if they need a new version of an application, we got those problems solved with managed installs with scripts and syncs and all that kind of stuff. All the solutions we talked about. Patching happens. Everything's great. Everybody gets this system. Then if we have those exceptions that do require local admin rights for some part of their job, then for some of them, the solution might be an additional computer, an alternate computer. Okay? And on this one, they can do whatever it is they want to do, and they got full rights to it. They also have their standard computer, which they can't break. Right? So we know that even if they break their secondary machine and we have to help them fix it, and hopefully we have a solution to that, we'll talk about in a second, but if we have, even if they break that, and it takes us a while to figure out what they did and fix it, and we have to actually get, stick our hands in and actually fix it and spend time and work on it, we know that during that entire time, without interruption, their line of business standard computer still works. They can still get the email. They can still do the Office apps. They can still do all that stuff, right? Because that computer hasn't been broken. That's the benefit of not having local admin rights, is users can't break computers themselves. Right? I mean, they could take a sledgehammer to it, I suppose, right? But they can't install stuff and reconfigure stuff and break things that way. So they're alternate computer. And if it's a virtual machine, so much the better, because snapshots. Let's say they reconfigure stuff as part of what they need to do. Say it's a programmer again, and he needs to change this in the operating system, that in the registry, this in the application, and do some sort of test, and that breaks things and the machine doesn't work anymore. Go back to the snapshot. Done. Problem solved. Try it again. And they can just keep reverting the snapshots. They can take snapshots, revert to snapshots, and effectively it's never broken, and we don't have to help them out. But even if it's not a virtual machine, we don't have that kind of virtual infrastructure to do, one-off desktops and stuff like that, we're going to buy them, a second PC or something like that, or maybe there's a lab of computers where they can go and do that sort of stuff, so we don't have to buy everybody one, whatever. All right, the point is there's still recovery mechanisms for those too, right? Even if it's a hardware, like for instance, Windows has a system recovery feature. I can revert back to a previous, essentially, snapshot. Right? So yeah, we've got to buy extra systems, whether they be virtual or physical. But just imagine, and we'll talk about in a moment when we get to selling this, and we're going to put actual numbers on it, right? When we stack how much it's going to cost to purchase these extra virtual or physical systems for some of our people, only some. Most of our people are going to be fine with the lockdown line of business standard computer. We had to buy some extra systems, right? That money that we had to pay is offset by what we save and the tech support man hours that we no longer spend on millions of random issues, right, that users cause because they can't cause them anymore. And so if I just need some of my exceptions just need another system so that they can change anything willy-nilly and be local admins on, that solution might work. On the right-hand side, maybe even on my standard computer, there's an app or two or three or whatever that just running them requires local admin rights. Okay, so maybe I need, in addition to the standard computer, I need to come up with some solutions for these. Maybe I find out that a later version of that problematic app doesn't have that weakness anymore. A newer version of the app, if I upgrade everybody to it, which might require some license purchases and stuff, upgrading, whatever, maybe the newer version doesn't require local admin rights to work. And if I upgrade to the newer version, problem solved. Right? Maybe a different program. Maybe I can find a competitive program. The one I already own and am working, maybe if we switch to this other one, it doesn't have the weakness of requiring local admin rights. It'll work fine as a standard user. Maybe I can virtualize an application, especially client-server type apps. They're usually built with this in mind, and they go straight into Citrix or AppV or whatever it might be, where I can virtualize applications and I can host them centrally, where they might require some sort of local admin rights, but it's within my virtualized systems, my AppV hosting, my Citrix hosting server, and it's not on their computers. Right? It looks like it's running on their computers. They can do what they need to do, but they can't mess up their computers because they don't have local admin rights on their computer just within that virtualized application host. Right? Maybe that's a solution. But the real point here is there's probably a solution somewhere. I haven't even mentioned there's a tool from Dell called Privilege Manager. Right? And there are competitor products, non-Dell products that compete with this product as well, where you can have a user that's not a local admin on their computer, but when running that app, the app is allowed elevated privileges. Right? So there are solutions to this problem. You're not stuck with all of your users being local admins. And that's another point. And I'll reiterate this again later, but even if I can only convert some of my end users to not be local admins, I'm still better off, right? Because if a user's not a local admin, they're going to generate less need for IT to intervene, right? Because a lion's share of your tickets right now, as I'll talk about in a second, are problems users caused themselves on their computer, whether it's malicious or unintentional. They needed that Java update, and it came bundled with browser bar, Ask Toolbar. I couldn't think of the name of it. It came bundled with Ask Toolbar. Right? They didn't intend to do something malicious to foul up their computer. They really needed that plugin. And because they're local admins, they could go get it. Well, they don't understand that sometimes stuff comes bundled, and they need to pick the custom installation. They need to know where to go get the clean installer that doesn't come bundled with that stuff. They don't. It's not their job. It's our job. We take away local admin rights. We solve problems for them too. Right? So it doesn't matter how few of my users I can migrate to not being local admins anymore. Every single one I do generates less work for IT. Even if I literally have some exceptions that I don't have a solution for, they have to be local admins on their box. I can't afford 2 systems for them. Even if I have exceptions, every single user that I can migrate means less work for IT, which means more time to do other things you can't get to now. Okay, so how do we sell this? We got to put hard and fast numbers on it. We got to speak. See, here in IT, we're all technical people, and we speak a certain language, and it's all about possibilities and functionalities, right? We don't speak in dollar terms, and that's what management speaks in. Well, how much is it going to cost? And they're short-sighted because they don't understand the technology involved. They can't see the long-term costs. They can see the upfront price tag to purchase that particular system, whether it be a K1, a K2, privilege manager, you know, whatever it might be, a virtualization, extra physical machines. That's what they see. We have to speak their language if we want them to understand and support us. So we got to put it in dollar terms. Okay? And so we can do this pretty simply. If we can, of course, if we have a service desk system in the first place, like the K1 service desk, talk more about that in a moment. But if we have some tracking system for our current issues, somewhere, some way, that we can report out of, then we can, and we have the ability in those tickets to be tracking which issues would have never, ever come up if the user hadn't had local admin rights. Right? If we can report on that. And, of course, if we're tracking how much time was spent to solve that particular issue when it came up, right, then we can say it's taken this many man-hours this year, which, of course, we know how much we all get paid, so we can put dollar terms on each man-hour, right? So if we can say that, you know, 200 man-hours this year, whatever number you come up with, could have been saved if we if users weren't local admins, or if at least if these users weren't local admins, right, the ones that we can actually migrate and not our exceptions, then we know exactly how much money we could spend and still break even or do better, right, in monetary terms. So we got to speak these terms. We got to take and look at the user-caused issues that if we had taken away local admin rights, right? They installed these spyware, malware things that we have to then go and mess around with, and it takes hours and hours, or we have to re-image our box, and they lose a little bit of data, and that, you know, that has a dollar sign attached to it, right? Whether it's patching-related issues that we had to deal with because they had local admin rights, and therefore they could apply patches before we were ready, or they applied a patch that we'd already marked as superseded in our K1 to make sure they didn't get it, and they applied it, it caused the problem. Right? We have to go deal with that and try to figure out how to get rid of the patch where if they didn't have local admin rights, they wouldn't have done that, right? They can install whatever random application they want and as many of them as they want, and they overload their systems, or they don't have the right applications because we don't have the standardized environment that's locked down and controlled where they always have what they need, right? We take the tickets that fall into these categories, right? We add up the numbers and the man hours that was spent resolving them, and we got a dollar sign, y'all. We got a dollar sign. We can speak in terms management will understand. So here's what we do with that, right? We have the reporting. And here's where I might suggest a little power tip, okay, a little pro tip. So if you add a checkbox to your ticket, right? And you can hide this checkbox, especially in the K1 service desk. You can easily hide fields from users that only technicians can see and interact with. So we hide the field, this little checkbox, and it just says, it asks the technician, would this issue not have come up if the user wasn't a local admin? And that greatly simplifies this reporting. Sure, I could go in and say, show me all the tickets with these categories. And I had to dream up in my head, like we did on the previous slide, I dream up which categories correspond to would not have had this problem if the user hadn't been a local admin, right? But I don't even have to do that if I have this cool little checkbox. And so I might do that as soon as we hang up today, right? I might go and add that checkbox to my ticket so that going forward, we have the easy, simple ability, because this isn't going to be an overnight project anyway. We'll talk about that more in here in a moment. All right, so go ahead and begin collecting that information so that we can report on it. It makes it greatly simplified, okay? Now that we've got the answers, so I told you the K1 and K2 solutions to the problems that taking away local admin rights creates, right? Now we've got that. That's great. We know that they can solve our problems, but do we know how long it's going to take us to implement those solutions? Do you know how long it's going to take to set up managed installs for all the applications that users might ever need? To set up scripts to change configuration items that users might ever need? To set up patching so that it is automatically getting machines out there to your machines? You got to learn these things. Maybe it's been a while since you went through Jumpstart. Maybe you've never been through Jumpstart. You got a case appliance dumped to your lap. Right? Do you know how long it's going to take to set up your gold image and get that working on all your different models of machines and so forth, right? We need to begin getting this stuff set up so that it's ready to go. Okay? Number 3, those exceptions. What are our solutions? Who are our exceptions? I mentioned 4 possible groups up there, but you know, not only do we have to find out who our technical exceptions are, we got our non-technical exceptions. VP level and above going to be able to be local admins? Well, I'm still going to tell them, look, you guys are going to cost us this much money in man hours every year if you maintain your local admins. It may be worth it to them. They sign the checks, fine, whatever. But we need to know this. We need to know who our exceptions are, and if we can or will come up with solutions for them. Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we have exceptions. It doesn't even matter if most of our users are exceptions. Every single one user that I can take away local admin rights for saves IT work and therefore money. And 4, finally, as I mentioned, this ain't going to be quick. This is not an overnight thing. Monday, when everybody shows up, they no longer have local admin rights. That ain't going to work. We have to build out the solutions we talked about in number 2. And we're going to do this in phases. Because taking away local admin rights can cause more problems than it solves, we got to be careful about this. Okay? We're going to talk about that. That's next, planning. Here is our rollout. Here's the project timeline. And every one of these stages is really important. And I'm being very, very, if not verbose, and you know, I don't have a lot of text on the slide here, I'm being very deliberate in breaking apart each step as a separate and discrete step. Okay? So first of all is the data acquisition. As I mentioned in the beginning, how many of our tickets, how much of our man hours in IT are taken up that would be freed up overnight, instantaneously freed up, the instant that we took away local admin rights, if we did it correctly. How many tickets and how many man hours per ticket? We got to get that first. We got to get the project believably sold. Or we got to have that information, so we acquire that data. Again, you might go and add that checkbox to your ticketing like I talked about. Okay? Now we got to identify all the solutions that are going to factor into the problems that will come up once we take away local admin rights. And once we take away local admin rights, we know that people are going to need to install software and configure settings and have patches and so forth. So what are all the solutions? We know on the K1 and K2, we know that they provide a lot of solutions. But do we also, once we identify those exceptions, do we also have some applications that require elevated privileges, or we might need to purchase something like Privilege Manager and you know, or something like that, right? And if we don't own these additional solutions, maybe we don't own a K2, maybe we need a trial. We need to get a trial license for these, for our testing, right? And then once we've proven that we do need this thing and it works, then we can maybe go and buy it. That all needs to be in the planning stage here. And then we've got to carefully plan the rollout. Who is in the test group? How many test groups or phases do we have, right? Who is in the main group that we believe, based on our research, can be completely migrated, no local admin, nothing? Who's in the exception group? How many exception groups? What are the different solutions for our different exception groups if we're even going to tackle them at this time? We got to plan out each phase of the rollout. Okay? And then we got to build the solutions for each phase. We got to set up managed installs. We got to set up patching. We got to set up K2 imaging. We got to get these additional applications or whatever other functionalities, Privilege Manager, whatever that we're going to need to solve the problems that we're going to create by taking away local admin rights. We've got to build those out and they're ready to go. And now, finally, we're ready to actually test this on some people, on some machines. And our phase number 1, test group number 1, whoever's in that, then test group number 2, test group number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many test groups and phases we're going to have. Depends on how big we are, how many different, departments and apps and models and all the different factors and how many test groups we need. And then finally we get to our exception test group, right? The people who are in that exception that do need some local admin rights for some things. And we might use some of those, test out some of those alternate solutions we talked about. Okay, we want to test those people now too. And each time we have a test group or phase, we've taken those lessons that we learned, the things we couldn't pre-think of, right, that we learned only once we actually flip the switch, that are problems that we have to come up with a solution for quickly, and we reapply those each phase so that the next phase is more successful than the previous phase. Don't wait till we get to the end of the whole project to take a stock of all the lessons learned. Right, let's continue to make each phase more successful. And all this tends to make us look better in the eyes of management, which gives us more chance of being successful in all our future phases and future projects. That constant feedback, that constant return. And then finally, we're ready to roll this out to our production environment. Rubber meets road, right? But if we have successfully and correctly done our test phases, this really should be the least eventful, smoothest part of the entire process. Right? Depending on how deliberate we've been, how many test phases we had, how many lessons learned, adjustments we baked in to our now production rollout. This really should be the least stressful part. Right? We've done all the homework, covered all the bases, ready to go. And then this is something we don't often think of. Post-justification. We did our pre-justification. We talked about that. Right? We saw how many tickets, how many man hours were spent with issues that would dry up overnight if we took away local admin rights correctly. Well, we need to go and do some post-justification, the due diligence of proving that it really did do what we said it was going to do. We need to go back now, a week from now, a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and show that those tickets really did disappear, that we really did reduce the load on IT for break fix by taking away local admin rights. All right, we got to go back and do that work now. Okay, that validation. Make sense? So with this slide here, we're showing you custom inventory, and Shane has dropped into chat the configuration that you would need to bake into your K1 for all 3 supported agent operating systems, right? Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can collect this information you see on my screen right now on this slide. You can collect this information from every single computer every single time they inventory with the K1000. And what that means is that we can now report on who is a local admin on their computer. And that means, especially if I'm using the K1000 service desk as my ticketing system, now combining this inventory information and tickets, I can now report to management on who is using up IT time, right? Who is, how many tickets and how much time per ticket is being spent. I can show direct correlation. People who don't have local admin rights don't generate many tickets, and the tickets they do generate don't take a ton of time, right, collectively, en masse, whereas the ones who do have local admin generate more tickets and generate more time-consuming tickets collectively, right? So this is the beginning. Go ahead and take this code that we've given you, create a custom inventory field for Windows, create one for Mac, and create one for Linux with each of those 3 bits of code that Shane has dropped into chat for you. And you can begin collecting this information from your computers, and that can be the first step along the path. So that's the end of the presentation. Okay, and I know that's a lot of information, and there's a lot more that can be said. We can go into detail on how to set up patching and manage installs, and we can talk about other solutions like virtualization and privilege manager and all those other things. We don't have time. I only got an hour. Right? And we've covered a lot of those things in previous KKEs that you can go watch on demand, right, in our repository. Go to support.software.dell.com and search our knowledge base for KKE. Click on video tutorials. You'll find those things there you can watch and learn. You can come to any of our future KKEs open forums, ask any question. Okay? So with that said, Andrew, if you're still here since you're host, I'm going to ask you in just a second to unmute all the mics. Folks, we're going to give you time, and I know that we don't have much time to the top of the hour, but if you can hang out, I can hang out, and I will continue to answer your questions until you don't have any more. Okay? Now, Andrew's going to unmute you as soon as he does, folks. If you have a microphone, you might not know you have a microphone. We're going to hear every single sound coming through your mic. You might remute yourself as soon as Andrew unmutes you, and then you can unmute when you're ready to speak. So with that said, Andrew, if you would please, sir. All right, folks, who's got a question? Come on, got to be at least one question. Nothing? Come on, folks, you're going to make me have to go back to work if you don't have any questions.
I've got one for you, Ron.
Go, John.
How do you recommend figuring out which applications are going to require administrator access? Do you have
That's an
a
excellent
recommended
question.
process, or how you know what applications users are using, that kind of stuff? I'll let you run.
Excellent. Excellent question, John. I might put you on the spot at the end of this question. But it's an outstanding question, and there's lots of different ways. Probably the quickest way to get started, of course, is a Google or an IT Ninja search, right? The thing we've always got to remember is it's unlikely that any one thing we want to do with a first person that's ever asked that question, with a first person, first company, first outfit that's ever wanted to do that thing. Chances are other people have already built those wheels. Let's not feel like we have to reinvent them from scratch. Let's go ask the question, right? We've got access to tens of thousands of our fellow technicians, most of them with case appliances at IT Ninja. It's an excellent forum to ask those sorts of questions. Has anybody tried to take local admin rights away for this particular application? What hurdles did you come up against, right? And while I'm waiting for those responses, waiting for those answers at IT Ninja, I can start my searching. I can go Google. I can go to the manufacturer's website and click and read a FAQ about that particular application, see if that question has asked. If I have a representative, I have an account manager with that particular company, right, or something, some sort of support mechanism, I can contact them directly and ask that question. I can test it on my own. Right? I can set up a machine with no local admin rights. I log into it with an account that doesn't have local admin rights, and I can try running that application and see what happens. I can get one of my, let's say it's a finance app, and I'm an IT guy. I don't know how to run that app. What do you click on to make it do its thing? I don't know. I go get one of my finance people to come and sit with me and tool around it and see what works and what doesn't work. I mean, there's no, to my knowledge, there's no real hard and fast process, the rule-based process. You should always do it this way. There's not any specific application that I'm aware of or system that can test these things for you. It's not like a tool you can download and say, run this app and see if it requires local admin rights. That would be really cool, right? Did you have any input on that, John? Any particular answer that you might offer?
My first thing would be to create a list of any non-standard applications that users need that aren't included, say, in your basic image.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation first would be start with groups, sales, engineering, finance, see if there's any particular application. Say, for example, I remember back in the day, and this is going back a while, AutoCAD. I was working as a consultant in an environment where they did not provide users local admin access, and the one engineer needed to use AutoCAD, which at that point, and I can't speak for it now, but at that point it absolutely required admin access, local admin access in order to run, and I resorted to running through registry keys by hand and flipping permissions on the individual registry keys in order to get it so that this guy could run the application without having local admin access. Needless to say, that took a while, but that approach did work. Hundreds of keys later, trial and error, I finally got it working for him. But yeah, the first thing would be creating a list, divide it out by groups, and then, as you said, testing. By all means, leverage the K1000 reports. Custom ones if the canned ones aren't getting you exactly what you need, or maybe they're not focused enough. And like Ron said, don't expect to implement this overnight. And be prepared for surprises. As you do roll it out, there's always going to be cases where people call in and there's going to be something off the wall that, it turns out in order to get into a certain website, we needed to install a certain, ActiveX component or something bizarre that, you wouldn't expect.
Even a function within an app, John, that's only a seasonal function. So
Right.
We tested all the normal day-to-day functions within that app, but we didn't test that thing that they only run at fiscal year end, right?
Exactly.
And here it comes, and voila, they can't run that function. Right.
And the most important thing to that note is document. As you come across these findings, document everything so that you have it to refer to, a year from now. So if for some reason things change or you have to go back and justify, well, why is this project taking so long? Where are you with it?
Mm-hmm.
You have something to take back to them and show, okay, well, this is what we've done. And usually, if your documentation has been thorough, they'll look at the first 3 or 4 pages of it and just go, oh, okay, yeah.
Especially anything you've written,
I'll let you
right,
run
John?
with that. Yeah, well, yeah, I try to write things down, but again, it's because I'm not going to remember all those details.
Yeah.
In the worst case scenario, I'm driving home and I get, hit by a truck or something. If I'm the only guy that knows it, the guys I work with, they're in bad shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
For them just to go in and try to understand why I did this or why this is set a certain way. So, I'm maybe, I just try to be a little more compassionate, but that's the way I take it. Honestly, I do it mainly for myself as a side benefit. It works out well for other people who have to come along later and understand why things were done the way they were. So anyways, just a couple ideas there.
Excellent. All right, folks. Any questions? You've hung out this long. There must be something else you want.
Don't see anything in chat. Nothing in Q&A. Just FYI.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead and call it, folks, since nobody's got anything. Thank you so much for coming today. I hope you found value. If you did, or if you didn't, we'd love to get your feedback, kketeam@case.com. You can send any feedback you want to that email address, good, bad, or otherwise. We want this program to be useful to you, and the more feedback we get directly from you, the better we can make the program. We're always interested in future topics as well, if you want to, which you can also suggest at connect.case.com. Until next time, folks, it's great to talk to you. I look forward to seeing you again at a future KKE. Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everyone.